Dear students, today I would like to talk about a remarkable literary criticism prescribed in your syllabus. The name of that literary criticism is Tradition and Individual Talent, written by T.S. Eliot, one of the most remarkable modern poets of English literature. And the tradition and individual talent is considered to be one of the most remarkable criticisms in the history of English literature. And this literary criticism was published in 1919. T.S. Eliot had talked about the relationship between tradition and individual talent in this literary criticism very, extraordinarily to focus on the importance of the tradition. The literary criticism, tradition and individual talent, uh, is actually divided into three parts. In the first part, T.S. Eliot had talked about the importance of tradition. And in the second part, he had talked about the relationship between tradition and individual talent. That is the poet and and also the poet and the poetry, the relationship between poet and the poetry. And in the third part, he had talked about, the overall observation that is found in the closing, discussion of T.S. Eliot in this tradition and individual talent. So initially, T.S. Eliot had talked about tradition, and according to T.S. Eliot, tradition is actually the living culture and practice originated from the experience of the past, and that is why, though the tradition is related with the past, but present is also very much important, and that is why we can conclude in this way that if we want to understand tradition well, then we have to make a relationship between present and the past. That is, the present culture and customs and practice should be connected with the past, should be connected with the past history, should be connected with the past tradition, should be connected with the past customs, and that is actually the relation between tradition and individual talent. And T.S. Eliot had also focused on this fact that if we want to ask about the tradition to people, then it will be difficult for many people to define tradition. But many people will cry out about the loss of tradition. But whenever they will be, requested to talk about tradition, to define tradition, then it will be really difficult for most of the people to define tradition. But tradition is definitely important according to T.S. Eliot. So after talking about tradition, in the second part of this literary criticism, T.S. Eliot had talked about the relationship between tradition and individual talent, and also the relationship between poet and the poetry. And according to T.S. Eliot, no individual talent is important if he is not connected with the tradition. And that is why a modern poet or any poet of any age should know about the tradition of the past ages. If a person would like to be a poet, then he should not be only aware of the present situations of the world. He should not be aware of his own territory also. He should be aware of the tradition of the whole world, particularly in his jurisdiction. Suppose if anyone would like to be a poet, then he should know about the tradition of poetry, not only of his own country, not only of his own territory, but he will also have to be aware about the tradition of different regions of the world. Suppose a poet is, interested to write Bengali poetry, then he should also know the tradition of Europe. He should know also the tradition of the adjacent countries, also the countries in different places of the world. If he doesn't know that, then it will not be possible for him to be connected with the tradition. And at the same time, the present poet also should be aware of the tradition of the past. Suppose if one would like to be a poet, then he should know about the previous ages. In the modern age, a modern poet should know about the tradition of the age of Chaucer, about the tradition of the age of Shakespeare, about the tradition of Elizabethan period, and also other periods. And whenever he will understand the pulse of the previous ages regarding his jurisdiction, then it will be possible for him to be a good poet. Otherwise, his importance will be very much, insignificant, according to T.S. Eliot. And if we focus on the writings, particularly the remarkable poem, that Wasteland of T.S. Eliot, then we will find that T.S. Eliot had written this famous poem Wasteland by referring so many allusions, and it proves that T.S. Eliot was very much aware of the previous, ages, aware of the traditions of the previous ages of English literature, or not only English literature, but also Greek, Roman, and other remarkable literatures of the world. And that is why, T.S. Eliot had focused the necessity of making the bridging or the connection between tradition and individual talent. And also that there is the relation between poet and poetry. But a poet is only significant to focus on the to create poetry. And a poet should be aware of the creativity, aware of creativity, but at the same time, we will also be aware of the previous traditions simultaneously. And a poet is necessary to focus on emotions, or the focus on the things in the poetry. But the poet is significant only like a catalyst. He has given the theory of catalyst with a chemical reaction. If we would like to make a reaction between sulfur and oxygen and sulfur to produce sulfuric acid, then we need the platinum as a catalyst. But the platinum is essential only to make the reaction, only to make the chemical reaction. But whenever the chemical reaction will be complete, then platinum will have no importance. But the platinum will be as it is. But the two, after the reactions, and new gas is produced, but the platinum will be as it is just before the reaction. Similarly, the poet's mind is like a catalyst. Poet's mind is necessary only to produce poetry. But whenever the poetry will be produced, then the poet's mind will not be necessary anymore. And poet's mind will be as it is after the production of the poetry. And that is actually the theory of the catalyst. And that theory of catalyst is very much important. And everyone should have to understand this theory of the catalyst to understand the necessity of the poet's mind to produce poetry. And in this way, the poet's mind and the poetry is related, but not closely related in the true sense of the term. Because after the production of the poetry, a poet will be, separated from his speech of creation. So the poet's mind is only important for creation, nothing more, actually. And the poet is also important to have the historical sense. That is considered to be tradition. And that historical sense is important for any poet, according to T.S. Eliot. And T.S. Eliot, in the third part of the chapter, T.S. Eliot had focused on the conclusion. And here he had talked about that criticism should be, honest criticism should be only to poetry, but not on the poets. Because poet, will be depersonalized. Whenever a poetry will be produced, there should be the theory of impersonal theory, or the theory of depersonalization. Poet will totally be impersonalized, totally be depersonalized. Because if the poet is very much personal in presenting his thought in the poetry, that piece of poetry will not be famous one, would not be a remarkable one. And in this sense, T.S. Eliot is also focusing on the necessity of the objectivity. not the subjectivity, like the romantic poets. Romantic poets are always, interested in focusing on their personal feelings, emotions, whereas T.S. Eliot is talking about the importance of objectivity. And that is why the theory of impersonalization or depersonalization is also very much important. And whenever the theory of impersonalization or depersonalization will be active, then a pitch of extraordinary poetry will be found. And for this reason, the criticism should not be, on the poet. Rather, it should be on only the poetry. Poetry should be criticized, not the poet. Honest criticism should be directed not upon the poet, but upon poetry, according to, T.S. Eliot. And in this sense, actually, T.S. Eliot is reflecting his theory regarding, tradition and individual talent. But it is definitely necessary for everyone to go through the text line by line. But here I am only talking about the synopsis to give you some ideas about the definition of tradition, about the definition of individual talent, about the relationship between tradition and individual talent, about the significance of the tradition, about the significance of the criticism, about the catalyst theory of catalyst, and about the theory of impersonalization and the importance of its historical sense. And that is actually my focus on this tradition and individual talent. And in the true sense of the term, according to T.S. Eliot, no traditional, no individual talent is important if we do not find any connection between tradition and individual talent. If we talk about poetry, you will find the necessity of the connection between tradition and individual talent. And then a poet should be connected with the previous poets. Poet should be connected with the previous poetry. It is not necessary for the poet to be connected with all the branches of learning. He should be connected with only the traditions of poetry. Whenever we will talk about painting, a painter should be connected with the tradition of painting. Whenever we will talk about journalism, a journalist should be connected with the tradition of journalism. In this way, which profession you will like, you will have to be connected with the tradition of that profession. And here, as T.S. Eliot is a poet, he is talking about the connection between the present poet with the tradition of the past poetry. And so, in brief, actually, you will find these things to be reflected in, tradition and individual talent. Thanks to all of you for your patience here.